Good morning, Nigeria. Today, we shall continue our conversation on rethinking university autonomy.
Following the prolonged industrial action by the Academic Staff Union of Universities on ground of majorly inadequate funding of the citadels of learning, the need to reconsider the university autonomy has become imperative.
Now, in a discussion on rethinking university autonomy, some education administrators said that the idea of autonomy is integral to the establishment of universities in Nigeria.
Now, the university dons, however, said that such autonomy stands on one leg, as no citadel of learning in the world that is totally autonomous.
Well, the guests also indicated that the government has given some degree of autonomy to the governing councils, for instance, to undertake certain important responsibilities, including the appointment of vice chancellors and principal officers who are to pilot the affairs of the universities.
The most important autonomy granted the universities, according to them, is the freedom of intellectual discourse.
Well, the guests, however, identified internal inconsistencies in the laws with regard to the establishment of the universities, the impact of subsidiary legislation, as well as the role of third parties as some of the challenges militating against the full exercise of university autonomy over the years.
Some of the guests also advocated the judicial interpretation of the provision of the Autonomy Act and the need for adequate planning and strategies to enable the universities deliver on their mandates.
Well, the big question is, does the law limit the ability of universities, for instance, to independently and regularly source for funds elsewhere other than through budgetary allocation from the federal government in order to enhance their academic activities? And what kind of autonomy is required now for universities to function more effectively in terms of solving societal problems?
And what kind of a national education agenda, philosophy, and principles should be put in place to address these incessant shutdown of academic activities and, of course, facilitate the development of the universities, which is the way out of the funding challenge facing the nation's public universities? These are some of the issues we intend to put forward to our guests as we continue our conversation on rethinking university autonomy on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I am Kirian Umayo. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, we'll serve you our complimentary segments, and those will include newspaper review and business. For now, here is Elizabeth Omoruyi, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Kingsley and Kieran. Here is the morning news. Minister of Interior Ralph Aregbesola says the security breach at the Kuje Custodial Center was not isolated, but part of challenges of insecurity in the country. He stated this during an appearance at an investigative hearing by a House of Representatives had a committee.
Five people were there for specific responsibility of resisting and preventing any attack, and they were all armed.
We would also ensure the monitoring of measures put in place to protect lives and properties of residents in the FCT and those of all Nigerians.
Meanwhile, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says the worst of insecurity in the country is over. The minister stated this at a joint media briefing in Abuja.
Thanks to the purposeful leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, we can say, I want to repeat, that the worst is over, and peace and security are gradually returning to the land. Please don't misunderstand or misrepresent this assertion. We may still witness isolated cases of security challenges here and there, but it will not be on the scale we've been witnessed in the past.
In other news, the Nigerian Hydrological Agency has issued an alert that 22 states are prone to flood this month as a result of torrential rains expected in the country.
Because the soil moisture condition is a factor that influences either dryness or wetness. And dryness, which could lead to drought, or wetness, which could lead to, if there is over wetness, which could lead to floods. We advise especially state governments to emphasize on sensitization campaigns on people living on flood-prone areas such as river valleys and people living close to drainages.
The National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, says it is gearing up for a nationwide strike tagged Operation Go Back to the Classroom if the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities do not resolve issues which have kept students of public universities at home for almost 7 months. NANS President Usman Umar Barambu stated this while appealing to government and ASU to come to a compromise.
We are determined to return back our students back to class. We are going to engage the ASU and the federal government so that as soon as possible, our students will return back to class.
For whoever who believes that it can be used by any politician for their own selfish interests, we are saying NAS is united.
Train services have resumed in Bauchi State after many years of non-operation. Residents of the state applauded the federal government, describing the project as remarkable. For now, the train is scheduled to be operating within the state.
If you are not up to 35 years, I think nobody knows about railway. That's why we decided to come and join this first trip. The federal government need to put more effort. Then we need new facilities.
This is my first time of traveling on a train, and I feel happy.
I really enjoyed it because it has been long. We are down looking for this kind of a day.
For about 7 years, we have not run a single train. And we now came with an idea that why can't we start running a shuttle train from Bauchi to Infield? But it has not been easy for us, because the rate at which people have vandalized our track, the stock that they are going to bring. What I mean by stock, the train itself is going to be a modern train. You will see it just like that of Abuja.
The federal government has suspended its proposed excise duty for the digital economy sector. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Issa Ali Pantami, says this will save the sector from being overburdened and prevent increase in call and data tariffs.
I rejected that wholeheartedly. Other sectors where we are recording sometimes even minus, government did not stop the subsidy, but going to other sectors where we currently have 41 different types of tax being collected at the federal and state level. That attempt will destroy the sector because the economic situation in Nigeria doesn't allow us to continue to add more burden on our poor citizens. It is because of this Mr. President has immediately approved the immediate suspension of excise duty in the digital economy sector.
President Muhammad Buhari has declared strong support for the aspiration of Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu, wife of Kebbi State Governor, who is now on a 3-person shortlist for the presidency of the Union for International Cancer Control. In a letter to the candidates, the president pledged that the federal government of Nigeria, through the ministries of Health and Foreign Affairs, will ensure her success in the forthcoming election of the Union. The president congratulated Dr. Zainab Bagudu, who is also the Chief Executive Officer of Medicare Cancer Foundation, describing her zeal as a step in the right direction. President Buhari highlighted the present administration's efforts to put in place mechanisms to improve cancer care, including cancer health Fund, Chemotherapy Access Treatment Program, and inclusion of cancer into the National Health Insurance Authority scheme. The letter says, in a quote, "I've also signed into law the bill on the creation of the Nigerian National Cancer Institute and remain committed to seeing it start off as a legacy of this administration. This," he said, "will further improve cancer research and quality of care available to Nigerians." And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kieran and Kingsley after this break. To stay with us.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your mission. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
What is happening? Your eyes are red. Your hand is a machete and a gun. See, I'm hungry and I can't even contain it. See. Oh, my guy, calm down, calm down. See, Oga, I have planned to go and destroy these people's businesses in the city. I have to retaliate for what they've done at our own place. They cannot even take and have it now, never. If you destroy their business here, and they destroy that of those close to you over there, especially that your brother who sends you steady cash, how would you survive? Would your dreams be on hold? See, what you're saying is correct. But I'm still angry. The best way is to embrace peace. With peace and unity.
My people, let us embrace peace and unity. Let's learn to live as brothers and sisters for a progressive, prosperous nation. This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Every day in our country, senior citizens are discriminated against, disparaged, and treated with disdain by those who ought to respect them. We are all complicit in the way we have treated the elderly members of our society as institutions, families, or members of a shared society. Every time senior citizens get offered less than they deserve for the work they do because they are old, poor, and desperate, we are failing them. Senior citizen loses a child, and wow, they must be responsible for their death. Every time a senior citizen gets labeled a witch, is called mad, and shooed out of the way because they have no memory of where they were headed and look unkempt, we are failing them. We say, "Abeg, it all old, make it do die, make everybody for rest," to ailing parents, uncles and aunts. That's discrimination. That is neglect. When you see an old woman getting beat up and being accused of witchcraft, do not turn the other way. Stop and teach people that white hairs, wrinkles and hunchbacks are no evidence of witchcraft. Aging comes with a memory decline. Sometimes it's not out of place to have elderly people lose their way, forget details of their lives, and how to properly take care of themselves. When they get to this stage, they deserve your empathy, not scorn. Our ailing fathers, mothers, aunties, and uncles are deserving of quality healthcare and peaceful transition. Make their last moments memorable. Senior citizens have paid their dues. They deserve your care. Stop all forms of discrimination against them today.
Protein breakfast. Get ready for a great day. How do I know? Because my daddy goes through his work feeling good and always with a smile. Mommy is always filled with confidence. My sister is always in tune. And for me, learning new things becomes absolute fun. Because all day and every day, the peak goes on.
Start your day with a good protein breakfast. Eve. Reach for your peak.
Wait. Mama T, wetin COVID vaccine poster dey do for your domot? Abi you don begin work for those people?
Big mommy, na me put the poster there. Our teacher say COVID-19 vaccine dey safe well and it go protect you, me and all our family from COVID-19. Our teacher sabi road o, big mom. Make you follow who know road o.
My name is Dr. Chinonso Egemba. Then they call me Aproko Doctor. The COVID-19 vaccine na ogbonge way to take protect you and your family from wahala, sickness and death from COVID-19. Or you have to get your own free COVID-19 vaccine, sharply go any healthcare facility wey near you.
All right, we thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. OPEC and non-OPEC countries are proposing to revert to the production level of August 2022 for upward adjustment. Details with Alika Opanachi Arawa on Business News.
Following the adverse impact of volatility and the decline in liquidity on the current oil markets, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, and non-OPEC members have agreed to revert to the production level of August 2022 for participating countries for the month of October 2022. OPEC says the upward adjustment of 0.1 million barrels per day to the production level was only intended for the month of September 2022. Deliberating on the instability and drop in liquidity in the oil market on Monday, OPEC said it is pertinent to support the market stability and its efficient functioning, stating that OPEC Plus has the commitment, flexibility, and the means within the existing mechanisms of the Declaration of Cooperation to deal with these challenges and provide guidance to the markets. Let's take a look at Monday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Opanachi Arawa.
Many thanks, Alika Okparachi Arwa, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Next, newspaper review. All right, we have a couple of newspapers with us this morning, and we'll go through the window pages and take, of course, a couple of them as well for our discussion, plus other stories that are not immediately reported. Kirian, you have The Nation, I have the Punch newspaper.
Okay.
Let's begin by taking a look at the Punch newspaper. Punch newspaper, from top to bottom, that's first above the name flag. Discos failed to utilize 1,936 megawatts amidst blackouts. That's according to the federal government. Federal government suspends 5% telecoms tax on calls and data. Flooding killed 372 persons in 8 months. That's according to NEMA. 11 state varsities shun ASU. Federal government threatens unions. An earpiece there, BPE raises panel to revive dying government-owned companies. The lead story comes with a kicker which says Muslim ticket. No agreement with Tinubu. Khan insists. Talks tough. You have the details inside the paper, but there are 4 riders on the front page there. Donation to Kuka Center. Not bribe to pacify Christians, says Khan. And another writer says, Khan's conscience not for sale. Prophetic voice cannot be silenced. That's according to the Christian body. And then PDP jittery over Tinubu's visit to Jonathan. That's according to the APC. Nanuga promises issue-based campaigns. Earthquake kills over 40, destroys homes in China. See the photographs there from the earthquake that happened in China. Ipman begins strike. Fuel scarcity imminent in North. Terrorists invade Katsina community. Police kill 2. 5,307 kidnap and robbery suspects arrested in 2 months. You have details on page 14. Kieran?
Okay, right. Let's go to the Blueprint newspaper. The Blueprint newspaper, below the name flag of the paper, Tinubu's visit to Jonathan, strategic. That's according to the APC. Now, details of that on page 2. Now, present security challenge Nigeria's greatest threat since civil war, says the federal government. There are writers to that. Says, worst days over, terrorists on the run, laments delayed justice, government's refusal to sign 3,150 inmates death sentence. Benungwari community allows military action, urges extension to terrorist hideouts. You get all that story on page 6. Now, Chevron, Shell, others to remit 341 billion naira to NNPC Limited in September. Now, its story is on page 21. Also on the same page, we will complete 3.2 billion Port Harcourt Maiduguri rail project. That's according to the minister. All right. Police arrest suspected baby factory operators in Ogun State. Now, it's another story that's at the bottom of the newspaper. Lagos building collapse. Commissioner resigns. Death toll hits 5. That's on page 8. Truth set to succeed Johnson as British Prime Minister. All that on the Blueprint newspaper. Federal government suspends 5% duty on telecom services. Kenya 2022. Supreme Court upholds VP Ruto's victory. All right, we still have more papers. The Nation newspaper, above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, petrol scarcity looms as Ipman stops supply. It's on page 7. How Tinubu's vision turned Lagos into mega city. I read all that pages 2 and 3. Elizabeth Truth is British Prime Minister. That's on page 27. 5 dead, 4 rescued in Jigawa canoe accident. That's on page 6. Now, below the name flag, we have the lead story on the Nation newspaper for today. Bornu Petroleum Products Marketers begin 3-day warning strike. It's on page 27. PDP crisis. I will crush my detractors, says Wike. All right, 2 others to that. It's too late to break my ranks. Atiku already sharing positions before poll, says Rivers governor. All right, worst of insecurity is over. Federal government tells Nigerians. 3 riders to that. 3,407 insurgents surrendered. 96 arrested by troops. Abuja Kaduna Highway now safe. 66 terrorists killed. Anti-terror war to be intensified. 52 captives rescued. Read all that on page 28 and page 4 of the Nation newspaper. All right, now at the bottom, federal government suspends 5% tax on telecom services. And OPEC okays 1.826 MPD output for Nigeria. Of course, Europe furor over JCN's privatization. That's on page 5 and on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. I think we'll have a number of issues that we can, try and digest this morning.
No question about that. I want to begin with the story over the resignation of the commissioner who was in charge of fiscal planning and urban development in Lagos. That's Idris Salako. The statement issued by the Commissioner for Information in Lagos did not specify that that commissioner, Idris Salako, resigned on account of the spate of building collapses in Lagos. The latest, of course, being the 7-story structure that came down in Oniru, Victoria Island. It is the investigation by the reporters themselves who are now quoting sources saying that at the end of the State Executive Council meeting yesterday, being Monday, and following a review of his record. It said that the incidence of building collapse in Lagos had risen dramatically since 2019, that he was advised to resign. He was advised to resign rather than being sacked. Now, I'm saying this because it is significant. We always say in Nigeria that people who occupy offices take those offices as sit-tight positions, and that no matter what happens, nobody gets to resign. So the impression might be created that probably he stepped down on his own on account of building collapse. It would appear from the reports that we are getting, that's to say, for instance, on page 6 of the Punch newspaper, where you have further details of the story, a paragraph is saying that the Punch learned that the commissioner was asked to resign due to the spate of building collapses since his appointment in 2019. So he was pressed into resignation rather than he said, oh, listen, this has been happening too frequently under my watch, so I'm stepping down.
That's the point, I would also like to make. I had thought that he just resigned because of the spate of, building collapse in Lagos. If he was pressured, to resign, it's a different kettle of fish altogether. It boils down to the fact that, we don't often see resignations in Nigeria, even when the heat is so much on a particular sector. The person responsible for that sector never thinks of leaving. It's not in the history of this country. But the sooner the better. By the time we begin to reason in that direction, then we will be making sense. And of course, from 2019 till date, nobody has bothered to look into the real causes of this building collapse. Is it that the texture of the soil in Lagos, in some part of Lagos, cannot allow, to have stories and all of that? Don't they do soil tests and what have you? Because I don't want to believe that they're compromising, what should have been done in terms of materials they are using in erecting those buildings. I don't want to believe that the professionals there, the architects, the civil engineers, those who are involved, in building houses will not use, the proper materials, quality materials required to do that. Because of course the incessant nature of it has become questionable.
Well, Kieran, again, you raised a number of pertinent points, namely what goes on in terms of preliminary tests for construction, who gives approval, and then who supervises. In the case of the latest building collapse, there was a report that a stop work order was issued. That is to say, look, the authorities went there, the appropriate agency went there, and found that there were issues with the structure. Stop work. If they say stop work, it means stop work. Unfortunately, I think about a year or two later, they came back to the site, and then this incident happened. So what is it that the authorities themselves would need to do? The Lagos State government has said, oh, this is with the resignation of the commissioner is with a prelude to restructuring that whole ministry. But what is it that needs to be done? If you say stop work for what purpose? If there are structural defects, then there and then you virtually, of course, ring fence the place and ensure that nobody goes in there. And the next thing would be to take that structure down. If you know that the integrity, yes. Because sometimes they just go around it.
They stop work. And of course, the people who are responsible for regulating or approvals or regulating a building Lagos. Some of them will take some money. That's what we're talking about corruption. Because if you say stop work and work has continued, it appears that somebody whose hand is in it, who is in a position to say, look, my friend, go ahead, just leave that inscription there on your stop work and continue working.
The 2 points, Kieran. The Lagos State government now says that it will prosecute all those who violated the stop work order. We hope that prosecution will be diligent. But what we haven't seen are civil claims. There was a contractor handling that job. Now, if you lost your loved ones, there are reports about 6 persons who died in that incident. Or if your property is adjoining the building that collapsed, and then your property also suffers some damage, or you as a person suffers some injury, there ought to be a situation where people can pursue claims against those contractors, pursue claims against the contractors. You can have what we call a class action. Unfortunately, some of those persons who died, who are workmen or laborers, they are too poor or their relatives are too poor to initiate that, and everybody gets away. The same thing, you recall what happened in Ikoyi with the collapse of that 21-story high-rise structure. Actually, nothing has been heard. People just died, and you bury your loved ones, and that's it. Of the structure.
Okay, look at this. Petrol scarcity looms as if man stops supply. I mean, why all this? Like you said, incessant petrol scarcity, looming here and there. If you are coming out of it in a month, in the next couple of months, we are back at it again. If it's not Ipman, it's another, a section of union leaders or operators. Sometimes they say the tracker drivers. One of them was beaten up by the security agents, and therefore they're down into tools and all that. Now, Ipman. What is the problem? I don't know whether you.
Well, I'm already curious. Sometimes I think the way we present the stories will create the impression. They say they are embarking on a 3-day warning strike. I think it's an exaggeration to say that a 3-day warning strike necessarily will lead to fuel scarcity. That's one point about it. It's the discretion of the editors what emphasis they give to particular stories. But these are stories where, as we say, you bury them far inside. They are embarking on a 3-day warning strike. It's an extrapolation to say that the 3-day warning strike necessarily will result in fuel scarcity. But the fundamental issue that has triggered this 3-day warning strike is simply administrative. They're talking about the payment of their bridging funds. What we call bridging funds, that was under the, I don't know what has happened now under the PIA. You had the Petroleum Equalization Fund. So that as the petroleum products are moved from the ports in the coastal areas to the northern part of the country, the transporters get a bridging sum so that you have almost uniform petroleum price throughout the country. That was the intention under the Petroleum Equalization Fund that came into force under the Gowon administration in 1973. So because sometimes, if you recall, probably last year or so, they had the same issue about how much is owed, how much is not being owed, talking about reconciliation. Some of these things are just plain administrative, and you wonder why they continue to linger.
Yeah, why do they continue to linger? And you just mentioned when this act, came into being. So it's a practice that's been there for a very long time. So that would have been no need for anybody to owe. There's no need for anybody to owe. Let me tell you why it's important that this 3 days warning strike is very significant. Let me tell you, these people transport fuel. The moment there's no transportation of fuel into Abuja for a day, the ripple effect could mean another 1 month fuel scarcity in Abuja if it is disrupted for 1 day. The normal supply, if it drops, the ripple effects will in fact generate another round of scarcity of fuel in Abuja, for instance.
No, Kirian, that is not.
That's what they're highlighting.
Let me say this: what you are saying now will occur because one, hoarding will immediately set in.
Exactly.
And two, panic buying will ensue. Now, but hoarding is an economic offense. Let's face it. Unfortunately, we just take it for granted. Hoarding is an economic offense. So, are you saying, for instance, that fuel stations in Abuja get their supplies every day? It is not possible because their dumps are not filled every day.
Well, a typical example is that, when we started experiencing fuel scarcity in Abuja, we are having queues all over the place in Abuja and Lagos. It was happening in other states of the country. It wasn't happening in other states of the country.
That's right.
So it has to do with supply, regular supply. And of course, the amount of liters consumed, and of course, the behavioral pattern of the dealers, as you rightly said. So some could haunt, pretending that they don't have when they have. But I don't know whether we still have regulators who go around to filling stations to know whether they have compromised, that responsibility. This is another case altogether. But in the country where we live in for a very long time, to understand the way things work here, if you have any 3-day strike for supply of fuel to any city in Nigeria, it's going to have a ripple effect. Without cashing on that,
precisely.
Then hold and increase the
absolutely, Kirian. Now, two issues, of course, we already headline already. Britain is going to have another female prime minister. That's Liz Truss. Yes, after Margaret Thatcher, who was the first female prime minister in the United Kingdom. That was in 1979. Theresa May then came on, and then of course now you're having Liz Truss. That's one probably fairly settled. But what is significant again in terms of leadership? It's what played out yesterday at the Supreme Court of Kenya, which considered the election petition by Raila Odinga. And the Supreme Court, of course, threw out the petition and upheld the popular vote that saw Ruto emerge with over 50% of the vote, while Raila Odinga has scored just about 48%. One or two issues to raise. I know, of course, I'm conscious of the fact that electoral laws are territorial. In other words, how you prosecute your election petition, these are grounded in the Electoral Act. They're also grounded in the Constitution, which is the court of first instance, which is the court of appeal. As it is, you have to ask yourself, what happened that this matter was tried and this decision reached expeditiously.
Yes.
Rather than the kind of practice that we have in Nigeria that is costly, that is wasteful. And I mean, I know that you have. I'm saying that I know you have your views about us, but
no, I'm happy you are raising the point now. You know why? Because I only will linger. Unnecessary linger, and your colleagues will begin to raise ex parte order and whatever things. They know the tricks, what they're going to do, understanding the constitution and of course the act, guiding the sort of prosecutions. They'll cash in on it and make money out of it. And somebody will get about 200 SAMs, 200 SANs. Like that, we pursue the case of it. And Relo Dinga is not new in doing this. You know what I mean? We have his likes in Nigeria too. I mean,
perennial
litigants, I know that.
Yeah, but as you said, what's the point in wasting the time of the court and wasting the time of the electorate? In the absence of electoral fraud, in the absence of other issues that would have compromised the freeness and fairness and integrity of that election, you say it and then you move on. The another cycle of election will be upcoming. Not this one, you keep hitting your heads and people are all preparing for war. As if you are preparing for war, which is often the situation that we have in our country. Of course, over the weekend, Kirian, you and I were not on set yesterday. Over the weekend, we had, as it were, the dramatic end of an illustrious career. Serena Williams bowed out of tennis. She, of course, had been a prodigy in the sport, and no one in the female category recorded the kind of achievements she's recorded.
She's the queen. In fact, in the twilight of her career, when she started, losing, fatal loss, if you ask me, because one of the ladies, I can't remember, of course, we were able to a long tennis guy. One of the ladies, she said that she was watching Serena, as a team, she was watching Serena. And she came back, she came on and beat Serena in a very crucial encounter. I mean, as a team, so that gives you the impression that, look, you are truly growing now. And she appreciated that and bowed out honorably.
The numbers are simply staggering.
Yeah.
But aside from the singles Grand Slam titles, 23 in the open era, nobody had ever recorded that. Overall, of course, we have 24, but that was before the open era that began in 1968. Serena Williams buying out of tennis. She said she was evolving away from tennis. And congratulations to her and the inspiration that she's provided for tennis players all around the world. She's an Olympian, won a number of Olympic gold medals, along with her sister, Venus.
She said that I actually appreciated the fact that she said, look, there would have been no Serena if there was no Venus.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's it for us on our newspaper review segment. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll be returning to our conversation on rethinking university autonomy.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum,
and passions begin to rise. Remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportation. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your mission. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
The digital switch over project, which is commonly referred to as DSO, which entails television channels switching from analog to digital broadcasting, one of the biggest projects embarked upon by this administration. Branded as free TV, offers its viewers about 60 digital channels, including sports, music, movies, and news. The federal government has licensed about 23 set-top box manufacturers. 7 of them, after production, employ several thousands of people. We've made it now compulsory for all stations in Nigeria to only broadcast productions made in Nigeria for products which are produced in Nigeria.
You're welcome back, and to continue with our conversation on rethinking university autonomy, let's take some excerpts from yesterday's discussion put together by Joseph Otseng.
When we talk about autonomy and you say, for example, the governing council that represents the interest of the proprietor, in this case, the federal government is free to appoint the leadership of the university, is free to make laws for the university, and then at the same time, it is not free to generate funds for the university as it deems fit. Then you have a problem with that level of autonomy. It's not free to appoint staff as it deems fits. As it is now, all federal universities cannot appoint any iota of staff without clearance from the Office of the Head of Service.
Without autonomy, without the power to govern itself, without the power to do its own business, it is no longer university. The university has 3 statutory functions. 1 is research, 2 is teaching, and 3 is community service. And if the university doesn't have the capacity to do this in its own way, with its own initiative, with its own innovativeness, then it is no longer a university.
The people that populate the council, because there are more internal members of a university, in any particular university government council, than the external members. But then, even the internal dynamics, the internal members are always dictated by the dynamics of the internal mechanisms of that system. Politics of the local university is also too important or very important, whereby you may probably find universities that have certain so-called kingmakers or godfathers that still determine who gets into the university governing council from the vast population of the academic staff. It's not the most intelligent people that gets into the governing council.
All right, now those were excerpts from the first part of our conversation on Rethinking University Autonomy, and that was yesterday. Today, of course, we have another set of guests who are either current or former university administrators. Let's welcome a regular face on Good Morning Nigeria, Professor Mohammed Menoma. Menoma is former Vice Chancellor of Nasarawa State University in Kefi, Nasarawa State. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Okay. And also joining us from our Kano studio is Professor Shehu Alhaji Musa, is Vice Chancellor of Kano State University of Science and Technology. Professor Alhaji Musa, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning, Nigerian, and I'm glad to be here. Good morning.
Okay, and we are also glad to welcome you. Right via Zoom from Lokoja, we have Professor Munirat Yusuf Habib. Professor Habib is the Director of Public-Private Partnership, PPP, University of Abuja. Madam, it's a pleasure to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, thank you very much, all three guests, for being with us this morning. Let's begin again by just getting your own views on the essence of autonomy for universities. Professor Menoma, why is autonomy important for universities, and what is the amplitude of this autonomy?
Thank you very much. Autonomy is very important for the university because of the nature and characteristics of our components of the university. You'll find out that if you are to operate a system where different shades of opinion gather together, there is the need to create an environment where people are free to actually discuss and bring up what they feel is important and what has taken care of all the ingredients of discussions that are available in that environment. Essentially, autonomy is about freedom to do your things the way that is of best practice. So if you do not allow people that kind of freedom to exercise whatever it is that is essential to make them meet their objectives, then that environment cannot be said to be universal. And that is essentially what is autonomy is about. Freedom to admit the kind of students you feel require admission, freedom to employ people that have the capacity to do the teaching, the research, and the community service, freedom to operate without interference. That's the whole idea of autonomy.
Okay, now the autonomy you have explained is like a whole part of it, because we may begin to distinguish, in terms of financial autonomy, administrative autonomy, and all of that. But we will return to that. Let's bring in Professor Munirat Yusuf Habib here. I'm interested in asking you the next question. because of your position, I can see that the University of Abuja has a PPP arrangement, which of course will also play out in terms of funding, governance, and of course what we're discussing this morning, rethinking university autonomy. What is the import of a PPP when we talk about autonomy of the university? I would also like to get from you your own perspective of what the university autonomy should be.
Thank you very much for having me this morning. First of all, I want to make us realize that in the real sense of it in Nigeria, there is no full autonomy, no full university autonomy in any of the public universities. Because by what Professor Minoma has submitted, autonomy means self-governing entity where there's freedom to act, to initiate, to control, and to any kind of administer or apply funds that have been generated in a way that will be beneficial to the development of the system. But sincerely speaking, we don't have that in Nigeria. We have a system that is either directly or indirectly controlled by the government with a great sense of great deal of interference and even funding. When we talk of funding, it is still under the control and the watch of the visitor, the owner of the university, either at the federal level or at the state level. If we think of autonomy in the full scale, it means universities should be allowed to initiate programs that will generate the desired level of revenue that can be applied in a way that can enhance the developmental efforts of the institution. To this end, I want to suggest that realistically, let us just put aside that concept of autonomy and kind of operate what is realistic in the university system. All the parties involved are expected to make some sacrifices at this point. The federal government or the state government, whatever the case, and the university administrators and workers, lecturers, non-academic, whatever. How the federal government in its own part is expected to ensure some level of welfare for the staff as the owner and the visitor of the university. On the part of the university, we should have that right, that authority. I don't want to call it right, because when we talk of right, then we are still emphasizing autonomy. We should have that authority to generate, to initiate programs that can generate the desired level of revenue for the development of the institution. And that is why in 2005, the federal government under President Obasanjo initiated the PPP program, public-private partnership program, enacted into law in 2010. It was aimed as of then at providing the fund gap for MDAs and universities inclusive to carry out some developmental programs, particularly in areas of infrastructure. I want to talk of the university. Infrastructure covers any entities that can lead to generation of revenue that can either partially commercialized or fully commercialized. Like hostels, student hostels accommodation, that can be partially commercialized, whereby private investors are invited to put in their funds and construct hostels on build, operate, and transfer basis. There are other projects that can be carried out in this manner. For example, in maybe hospitality, agro-allied industry, recreational facilities. These are programs that universities can, if they have that authority, initiate and seek for investors that will come in and put in their investment, operate this for a while, and hand over to the universities. This will continue to be a perpetual source of stream of earnings for the university. And apart from generating funds, it's going to be another avenue to engage the university workers, whether lecturers or academic or non-academic staff. And let me tell you one thing, when staff and particularly lecturers are engaged in some productive activities, apart from the traditional teaching, supervision, and other things, external examination. In fact, the thought of going to strike might not even come.
Okay. Professor Munerat, let's pause you in the meantime. You've raised a number of very pertinent issues, just as Professor Menoma also earlier said. Let's bring in now Professor Alhaji Musa, who is the Vice Chancellor of the Kano State University of Science and Technology. Prof, let me throw this in as a point of interest for me. Because I've been calling you Professor Alhaji Musa. I could very well have called you Professor Musa. I don't know whether it was your dad or whether it was your, well, that probably would have been your dad. That was the subject matter of a song by Mama Shata Katsina. The song was Alhaji Musa. It used to be played on FRCA in the 1970s, and I fell in love with it. So I'm calling you Professor Alhaji Musa this morning with a great deal of excitement. But I know that Wudil, of course, also used to be the training camp for the NYC orientation exercise in Kano in those days. But that aside, let's get back to the serious business of university autonomy. Who is the custodian, if you may, of university autonomy, and therefore charged with the responsibility of pursuing the many strands and ensuring the integrity of the many strands of autonomy, whether it's administrative autonomy, academic autonomy, which is called academic freedom, or administrative autonomy?
Once again, good morning, Nigerians. It's my pleasure to be here. If I can set the background, universities are supposed to be universal, and by that there are expectations of standard practice for which universities are supposed to attain and to observe. The concept of autonomy is to give universities a sense of self-control, self-determination, and an ability to accomplish the three key areas of universities' activities, that is research, teaching, and community services. Without autonomy, without the freedom to pursue this, obviously a lot of things may not be in the best perspective. For example, the autonomy is being provided to serve as immunity for universities from undue interference from other authorities that may not necessarily be conversant with the operations of universities. So having said this, the three key areas of university autonomy have been mentioned in terms of administration, in terms of the academia, in terms of the funding. These are critical areas. And unless we really address the issue of autonomy, universities may not be able to deliver in the best fashion, and they may not be able to discharge their mandate to the best of their ability. Situations where somebody at different levels outside the university may begin to have the feeling that I'm the one to dictate which kind of course the university should offer, at what speed the university should progress, and what are the issues that have to be completely in the picture outside the university system. I think it's not good for the development of our system. The federal universities, maybe the level of exercising some of these autonomies may be relatively different from the level of state universities. And luckily enough, the Miscellaneous Act have provided this opportunity for universities to prosper. So in terms of the implementation of all these issues, we all know that the university, the highest body is the governing council, and the governing council decides on the employment, the funding, the financial issues of universities, and this is very clear. The management of the university is saddled with the day-to-day running of university activities. The Senate is saddled with controlling academic issues, and the congregation of the university are saddled with controlling many other activities that is interwoven between academics and non-academics. So the university as a system has its own structure that can implement this university autonomy very well. I think the most important thing is for leaders to have the political will to give the universities this better opportunity to explore the areas of autonomy, as we mentioned, in the area of PPP, hostel accommodation, and in the area of international linkages and collaboration, a lot of other areas. But the critical and most important thing is even the actors within the system, some of us do not appreciate this, the level of this autonomy. For example, if anybody will now be feeling that at the moment you need to provide accommodation for a student of the university with a sum of 5,000 naira, that is not realistic. It can't even buy you a mattress. It can't even buy you a bed. It can't even buy you, it can't even pay your bills for water, for electricity, for other issues. So obviously there are other areas which universities need to really work up and ensure that they charge at least the rate that will be, even if it is semi-commercial or full commercial, so that student will be provided with a more befitting environment, with a more befitting opportunity to study and learn. These are critical issues. But if you look at it, there are a lot of resistance even from internal unions that you can't even increase 1 naira in terms of services that the university is under. So even from that, it simply means that even some of the actors within the system do not appreciate the autonomy issues for which will safeguard the university. And in my view, if the universities are to survive and perform their functions effectively, we have no other issues but rather than to allow this level of autonomy of universities to be fully exploited by the different actors within the university, as I have mentioned. Council have their own role, management have their own role, Senate have their own role, congregation have their own role. There are various other committees. Universities have been governed by committees. We need to do this because government cannot shoulder all these responsibilities. If some of the activities are commercialized in a way, then some of them will be automatically dealt with by the management of the university, and that may not necessarily warrant some of the agitations that some of the staff union are actually making. While we may not be ready for full financial autonomy in terms of removing tuition fees to set universities must generate money to pay salaries, to pay all this, but there are certain services for which universities must be given an opportunity or must explore the opportunity of addressing them without taking them further to certain higher level in such a way that we can be able to have a smooth running of the system. Obviously, autonomy is very critical for our survival. It is very critical for our progress, and it is very critical for our development. And I think we all need to concur on the fact that if we appreciate the role that education will have to play in the development of our country, then obviously there is need for a better synergy between all actors within the education family and within the education sector, so that collectively we can be able to have all our hands on deck, because we need some synergy of action for us to be able to make progress forward. And I think really this level of autonomy need to be exploited and need to be strengthened, and particularly the state government need to be educated to understand better and in a better perspective this autonomy for which is virtually automatic for universities based on the provisions of the Miscellaneous Act for universities for 2003. And clearly, we cannot be making one step forward and two steps backward without, giving free hand for the university to operate, without exploring this immunity opportunity to disallow for undue interference. We still have issues that we really need to.
Thank you. We'll definitely come back to you. I really appreciate your comment, on the level of autonomy that universities in Nigeria will require to function effectively and efficiently. That was one remark made by Professor Yusuf Habib a while ago, where she pointed out the fact that the universities can engage in commercial activities and what have you. Just like one of the universities in Nigeria, Enugu State University of Science and Technology, just a few days ago, they were boasting of being the highest supplier of red oil in the southeast of Nigeria, which means that the university is into palm plantation and what have you. All right, now let's return to Professor Menoma. Now, there is need for universal autonomy. What level of autonomy are we talking about? Would you, subscribe to full-scale autonomy, or would you subscribe to, full-scale autonomy in some aspects of university administration? Or would that be a situation where government should also have a say in the operation of universities? Somebody mentioned in the previous editions that we had on this topic was saying that there is no way globally that the universities have a full-scale autonomy, because there's always a certain level of regulation that will come from government, be it a private university or public university.
Thank you very much. The confusion actually is from the point of view of trying to equate autonomy with regulation. If you look at it, what is desirable for the university is to be autonomous. Completely autonomous. But that does not say that government should not be part of the administration of the university. You have a council where government is fully represented. So it is not as if government is not part of the decision processes of the university. You find out that everything that has to do with the administration, financing of the university is squarely in the hands of council, which government is represented in most universities with more than 40% representation. So it is not as if government is totally out of the equation, that government is fully part of the decision process of the university. But what we are saying is that once you say that these are the people that are going to represent you in that university council, you should give them the free hand to do what they ought to do within that level of council. So also, there are matters of academic freedom that should be entirely matters for university senate. That anything, decisions, whatever it is, should be from committees of senate to terminate at the level of the operations of the senate. That is the kind of things that is going to give the university that capacity to be able to meet its obligations. But without that, you find out that you are not, people misunderstand. There is nothing wrong in putting, it is also part of the autonomy that you have a regulator that is trying to ensure that what you set for yourself that you are going to do, you do it accordingly. It does not take away the autonomy, but that it is a check that you are also doing what you set out for yourself that you must do. So that does not in any way influence, but it is where these regulators now begin to say that this is what you should do as against what you set out for yourself to do. That's why there is problem. But it does not in any way reduces the autonomy of the university if you have a body that is supposed to do a check to find out that those objectives that the university has set out itself and the procedure and the processes that it has already established that that is the way to go, is following that process and procedures. Again, people mistake the issue of investment. University cannot begin to raise money from nowhere. So the government or whoever is the proprietor of the university needs to bring this money first before the issue of investment can come in. You see, investment comes as a result of savings. If you do not have some level of funds that you can save, you cannot do investment. So it is from what you can actually get that is beyond what you require for the moment that you can now put it in investment.
Okay. All right, Professor Marama, thanks. Again, I always throw this in. You're an accountant, and so the numbers are fairly easy. There's an aspect of autonomy that is a bit tricky for public investors, state and federal. Is it the case, for instance, that the whole idea of university governance, from the perspective first of the proprietor who establishes the institution, state government or federal government, and then in the operation of the universities, that there is an attempt at equalizing all universities? So, you will fix the salaries of a professor or of an associate professor or a senior lecturer, and you expect it to be paid uniformly throughout the country. And they are quarreling. Part of the quarrel is over earned allowances. That is a matter you are bringing to the federal government, for instance. We recall on Good Morning Nigeria, we had the chairman of pro-chancellors of state-owned universities, Yusuf Ali, learned senior advocate of Nigeria, raising issues, for instance, with the computation of the earned allowances. How can you, he said, a worker, be determining how many hours you worked for and computing how much you should be paid for it, which is supposed to ordinarily be the business of your employer? So come and do overtime for 3 hours or 4 hours consistently over a month or thereabout, and then it is computed. My question therefore is, if we agree that autonomy is vital to the essence of the university, why are we then having this continuing attempts of saying, look, everything must be uniform, recruitment uniform, pay uniform, services uniform?
Yes, sir, it is you are very correct in the perspective you are coming from. But what is significant is that first, if you take the issue of an allowance, for instance, it is not correct, absolutely, to say that it is the staff that is determining the working hours. It is established that a professor is supposed to have this number of hours, he is supposed to have this number of students that are the minimum. Then if you do beyond that, you are expected to pay more. And a formula has been drafted that will capture the minimum for every cadre of the staff that is supposed to do the number of hours he's supposed to teach. A professor is supposed to teach for 12 hours in a week. He's supposed to take not more than 50 students for any of the classes, and anything beyond that become excess. Thus, there is a formula that is accepted by the employer, and that is what is used to determine an allowance. And if you take the issue of uniformity, it is because what it is currently offered is not up to the minimum. That is why you have the problem of uniformity. Assuming you reach a level where for instance, a professor is paid 416 at the bar, 416,000 naira a month at the bar. That is the maximum that a professor can earn. So if you say you are going to allow it to fluctuate, where is it going to go up or is it going to go down? And no university is willing to go beyond the 416 at the bar. So that is where the problem is. Assuming it has reached a level where academic staff or non-academic staff in the university are paid what it ought to be paid, then you can be talking about differentials, where there will be some level of universities that they are doing perfectly well. So a professor can earn 1 million. Another one, because of their level of and the environment they operate, maybe somebody can earn 600,000. But so long as wherever you can operate, however the level of you are still operating within the very basic minimum, then there will be that issue of uniformity.
Okay, good. Let's go back to Professor Munirat Yusuf Habib. We've listened to the two other guests, and I thought you all appear to be going to the same direction, from different perspectives. Now, you are the director of PPP, University of Abuja, which means that you are in the upper echelon of that university's administration in terms of having a better understanding of what autonomy is all about. In your view, and as a partaker in decision making in such a university in Nigeria, are you deploying best international practice in the university? And if the autonomy we are speaking about this morning is recognized globally, why is it that it's not been effected in Nigeria? And what are the measures you think should be taken in the universities to ensure that you attain some level of autonomy, be it financial, administrative, or otherwise?
Thank you very much. Actually, since the inception or the introduction of the emergence of our PPP concept in Nigeria, many institutions, many universities have attempted to employ that as an instrument for enhancing productivity and revenue generation. But I would say traditionally in Nigeria, we have this issue of bureaucratic, I would say, norms that usually impede the smooth running of this program. For example, there are so many programs that some universities have embarked upon to be carried out on PPP arrangements. But this have to go through so many processes in the name of the due process. I'm not saying we should not take account the principle of due process, but if there is a way the government has a way of enhancing or strengthening the university autonomy that we are talking about. Anytime a university initiates a program and seeks for approval through the parent ministry and to the regulatory authority, there are some regulatory authorities that come in when it comes to issue of PPP. Infrastructure Concession Regulation Authority, Group for Public Enterprise, so many of these. And if as speedily as they can get approval, I'm sure by now universities will have been able to link up to the rest of the world in celebrating so many PPP projects. That is the only appeal I can make to the authorities that be, and probably through the visitor or the owner of the university, that if special arrangements or maybe special that can be given to the universities to lessen the bureaucratic bottlenecks in getting some of these projects approved, sincerely speaking, is another way that you can enhance or strengthen the university autonomy without necessarily depending so much on government funding, which in any case is not forthcoming. Because we know the issue, the concept of PPP was accepted by the federal government of Nigeria because of its, I won't say inability, because of the paucity of funds to execute its infrastructure projects. So then arrangements should be made to lessen the bureaucratic process in getting this project approved. And again, I want to add that as a way of strengthening the autonomy of the universities should be allowed to even seek out for international partners to come into the university and invest into research and development, infrastructure, criteria as maybe they can call me, for example, solar provision, solar energy provision. We can attract international investors to come in and invest, operate this for a while, and hand over to the universities. In area of engineering, we can attract them to come in and enhance or boost our faculties of engineering, computer, and all the rest. Operate this for a while and transfer to the universities. And again, we can also entice them or attract them to come in by way of providing scholarship, sponsorship to our students. And that means it will be possible to even increase the school fees for some programs and attract scholarship for them to pay for this. These are partnership arrangements that we can put in place.
All right. Professor Munirat, I would like you to please explain further part of the current impediments that do not enable the free flow, if you may, of the PPP operation, say in a university environment. Now, we've had a number of discussions around university autonomy and university governance on Good Morning Nigeria. For instance, we got to learn from one of the former administrators of the university that for a federal university, for instance, you can't possibly engage in a lease agreement of about 20 or 22 years, I'm not quite sure of the figure now, without the approval of the visitor. That's to say, a lease agreement will require, if it's a federal university, therefore, it means that for the university to enter into a lease agreement of 20-something plus years will require the approval of the visitor. In other words, you have to go to the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic for that approval, and we all know what the bureaucratic process that would be. Yeah. That's one. And I would also like you to explain further. What is the business of BPE, Bureau of Public Enterprises, with regard to your PPP arrangement on your campus? What is the business of ICROC with regard to PPP arrangement for a university system where, for instance, you have a faculty of law and you have all the experts who can probably guide you on what to do, and then, above all, you have a governing council that takes ultimate responsibility for your decisions. Why are we having all these interventions, all these clearances, as it were, for BPE, ICROC, and so on and so forth?
Thank you very much. Your question borders on the same issue we are talking about. The university do not have the freedom to initiate and execute projects at will. Okay, one, by the act that established that led to the emergence of PPP in Nigeria, a regulatory authority is established, instituted, that is Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Authority, ICRC, and it states that every project that's going to be executed on the basis of PPP must be submitted to the ICRC first for clearance that you have this ABCD projects to execute your PPP. After that, you prepare an outline business case, OBC, for each project, and you send it again to ICRC. You begin a certificate. After this, you now come back and advertise for bidders. This advertisement, and after that, it goes through some bidding process. After this, you compile what is called full business case study, FBC, and send again to ICRC for clearance. And until you get this, according to the Act, before that project can be approved finally for execution. This project can take up to 2-3 years, I'm telling you, depending on the volume or the quantum of the project. Then again, we talk of the lease arrangements. You know, with the current high cost of our construction these days, there's some projects run to billions of naira. So if you expect an investor, for example, to take a loan facility of about 5 million naira to come and construct just 1 unit of a hostel. It is not realistically possible for this investor to recoup its investment within 21 years, which is by the act is the maximum lease period for the first instance, unless we seek an approval from the owner, the visitor of the federal government of Nigeria. So these are now, we are having that issue now. Because when you now ask somebody to come in and put the 5 billion naira to prepare to construct hostel, just 1 unit of hostel, about 1,500 bed spaces, and the bill of quantity is about 5 billion naira. He wants the financial model. It is not possible to recoup this 5 billion naira in 21 years. The minimum it can, that can have probably between 25 and 30 million. I'm sorry, 30 years in the first instance. So we have some of these bottlenecks, although some of these things are by the act of the university, that you can only lease out your land for 21 years in the first instance. So these are some of the bottlenecks we have to battle with, try to resolve them, and then no financier will release any 1 naira where the MOU does not specify in practical terms how these funds will be recouped after some reasonable length of time. No financier will give out loan, for example. Even Nigerian commercial banks cannot give out loan for more than 7 years. So some of these investors have to look at financiers from international investors, and they ask for maybe 20 years and like that. But this comes with the high cost of the construction. It becomes so complex, and in most cases we are in a fix of how to even solve these problems. So these are some of the things we go through, and that's why, like I told you, that is why most PPP in some universities have not really taken up, except probably some universities that might have to end the approval at the council stage, because autonomy again is that the council, the university governing council, should have that authority to approve some projects, even on a PPP basis, except otherwise, where the project is going to be beyond 21 years, then the same governing council can now apply to the federal government for an extension of period. So if this can be granted, I think we'll move forward.
Professor Muirat Yusuf Habib, I mean, that was a very a smart way of letting Nigerians know that the complexity of running in Nigerian universities is not just here. I mean, it's in another world, because you said you're battling with bottlenecks. And these are battles, you are putting in place to be able to have a project in a school, and you have to go through all manner of, bureaucratic activities, which some persons in those agencies will deliberately stop, because I know what they're talking about. Is you have to pass from one table to the other, and some persons on those tables will say, "Look, yeah, we are here now. Let's talk." And it could take months, for that file to leave that desk. Before you know it, the project that was projected for like 2-3 years will take 10 years. So we are beginning to understand Kingsley, what the complexity of university in Nigeria. Yeah, and she's from the public university.
Public university. Exactly. And one of the things that just occurred to me while she was speaking, I'm sure this must have also occurred to you, Kirian, is as we are unpacking the challenges militating against the exercise of university autonomy, we are seeing matters that, for instance, the unions do not bring to the table. The union, you don't bring these matters to the table. I've never heard ASU, for instance, say, look, these are the challenges with the operation of university autonomy. Can we, if the law is the impediment, as it is the case, have we seen a proposal to say, look, we are conversing the National Assembly to for instance, amend the appropriate legislation and then give the universities a free hand and then get the government councils to begin to work.
Exactly. And of course, we are going to take a short break now. And when we come back, I would like to ask Professor Shehu Alaji Musa to give us an idea of what running a state university is all about in terms of autonomy. Of course, he has listened to other speakers, make their points. So let's take a short break now. When we come back, the conversation continues.
Now waiting at me, you know, Chop. I need feel well at all. I just think malaria dey worry me. Don't that me meet me for here. You supposed to go hospital make you go do test now. You start clean, Jerry. Mama Faith, I beg no vex, so I don't waste your time. You go stand up, make I take your measurement. No yarnings. If you just look the person, you go sew the cloth where you go fit am well. Now we dey do that kind of one. Now people wey don't conclude say they get malaria where they never do test. I don't hear. Sense, Mama. I receive sense, so I go do am correct now. But come measure me. Make I quick go do my malaria test.
If I'm a sign of plenty different diseases them, plus including malaria, when you quick do test and na malaria, then go give you correct medicine. Stop the waste your money on top wetin no dey worry you and make you finish all the medicine wey they give you patapata. Now Federal Ministry of Health and American people them bring una this message.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media before you broadcast that false message. Think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household in safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, Excellent President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation to our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? all Sundays, and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
Thank you for staying with us. You are watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of NTA. Of course, we are continuing with our conversation on rethinking university autonomy. And of course, we have three guests this morning who have deliberated on the topic up till this moment. And we are continuing. Let's return to Professor Shehu Alhaji Musa, Vice Chancellor of Kano State University of Science and Technology. You've listened to Professor Muirat Yusuf Habib when she raised the point of issues surrounding a PPP arrangement in universities. Of course, she just shared the experience the University of Abuja has been having with respect to the process, of attaining that level of collaboration with the private sector. Now, let's share your view on what that is all about at the state level. You are the VC of a state university. What level of autonomy do you really have? And if you're engaged in PPP arrangement at the state level, what does the process look like? Is this so cumbersome as the one explained by Professor Muirat Yusuf Habib?
Well, I think from the perspective of state universities, and specifically Kano University of Science and Technology, I want to say that we are relatively lucky that the visitor to the university was an academic before, and he seems to be in full picture of the operations of the university. Otherwise, it would have been a difficult and a more challenging terrain. I know there are other state universities that are having much more, serious challenges than our own university. And I think it's because, like I said, the visitor was once an academic staff and he understood the terrain very well, and we are finding things relatively easy to handle. But still, there are other, side of it. For example, sometimes the ministry in charge of higher education do not seem to be adequately represented, despite the fact that there was a provision for the permanent secretary to be a member of the governing council, and this goes to explain exactly what Professor Minuma has rightly mentioned, that all the actors have been fully represented in the council. And this would have given respite for, people that are stakeholders, outside stakeholders, to feel that, look, we are fully represented in this system, and let's allow it to run the way it should be run. So fairly, I think we have not had absolute difficulty in terms of addressing some of these issues. I think our main area of difficulty is actually jacking up, some level of school fees and, some other charges that needs to be done. For example, it will be surprising to you still to know that Kano University of Science and Technology is still charging 18,000 naira, 23,000 naira per session. And obviously, without the government support, had it been the visitor didn't understand the gap that is existing, we would have found it very difficult to even operate. So these kind of issues, the stakeholders, like I said, need to have a fair understanding that for us to provide important services, honestly, we need to have situations where certain things need to be based on commercial activities. You can provide a hostel, like I said at the beginning, for 5,000 naira. Now, we have made two attempts in terms of PPP arrangement. One was an Italian company and the other one was a German company. and they are ready to provide 4,000 and 6,000 hostel accommodation unit for our students. But where do we reach the end is because of the time length for which the project will be handed over to the university. We are talking about 40 years, and the other one was about 45 years for them to recoup their investment and for the structure to be handed over to the university. And another area is the fact that per bed space charge, with the minimum they are willing to charge to recover this money in 45 years is around 250,000 naira per year per candidate. And if a student are now paying 5,000, you can now begin to see the trouble in jacking them from 5,000 to probably 250,000 for accommodation. Obviously, that will be a source of agitation. That will be another source of crisis. The student may not necessarily understand how would we move from this place to that place. Now, this 250,000, even when you look at the private universities, this is just about 25% of what the private universities are charging. Most of them, the hostel accommodation cost 1 million naira, some 1,500,000, some 2 million naira. So really, the whole issue is that I think the regulators, as you have mentioned, for example, the BPE and other actors need to understand that for universities regulation, the National Universities Commission is there. And if they have issues to address, these issues should have been packaged through the National Universities Commission, so that the National Universities Commission will now communicate effectively to the universities, because it's the agency that has been saddled with regulatory activities. But if all other different agencies, professional bodies, everybody is approaching the university to say this is what you must do, this is what you must not do, I think it's not very encouraging, and it's not very good. Let them go through the National Universities Commission. For what Professor Habibat have said, I know that this year's interaction with the National Universities Commission, they have come up with a robust plan in terms of how universities will engage in some of these PPP activities, how universities will engage in sandwich activities, how universities will engage in establishing outside campuses, and how outside institutions and universities can come and have campuses in Nigeria. And I'm sure the National Universities Commission are working very assiduously in this, and it will soon be communicated to universities for council, for senate, and other relevant organ to look at it, and then before it is final adoption. So sincerely speaking, full implementation of the autonomy in the state universities is also the same story, if not worse story in terms of compared with the federal universities. I know that there are situations where university vice chancellors may not be able to see the visitor. Probably they can only do that in 4 years, maybe they can only do that 4 or 5 times, or if there are convocation ceremonies. Our own is slightly different, like I have said. I have never had any opportunity to want to see the governor and the visitor, and that I have not seen him. And to be sincere and honest, there is nothing that we have applied for the last 9 years that I have been the Vice Chancellor of Kano University of Science and Technology that the visitor has not approved. We have had an opportunity to even take over 600 academic staff to be employed in the university, over 800 non-teaching staff. We have been provided with over 756 million to do the first accreditation exercise in 2013, and that set the foundation very well. So, but I know my situations may not be a reflective of the state universities, because my friends are there. I know how their system has been run, and I know how difficult it has been. Even on our own case, we still have challenges as usual. We cannot say that we have 100% of all that we require. So what I think we really need to encourage is the fact that we all need to understand what this autonomy entails, and we should be ready to allow universities to explore these opportunities of autonomy in terms of research, in terms of teaching, in terms of community services. Government at its own level must try to encourage and to see the realizations of the innovation, catalog of innovation that are in the universities. If some of this innovation will be patented, some of this academic staff will have an opportunity to, they may not even begin to think about the salary components, because you have a patented technology that gives a lot of things that helps you. For example, postgraduate program, I don't see any reason why, universities will not be able to charge, commensurate fees in their postgraduate programs. Postgraduate programs are supposed to be programs that will even help the university to be able to support undergraduate programs. So, honestly, implementation of autonomy in our universities need to be looked at it completely, and all actors need to cooperate. All actors need to give a fair understanding of how this system will move. Otherwise, public universities in a couple of years to come may not be in the best position to discharge the responsibilities that is vested on them in the best fashion, in the best manner that the country will be proud of. We really need to take this seriously, and we really need to take this as a matter of urgent priority. Now, if I can still make a comment on the issue raised particularly by Professor Noma on the issue of this unacademic allowances. The computation is supposed to be done by the management. The computation is supposed to be done by the quality control unit of the university. So I don't think individual should be the one that is being vested with the responsibility to compute what he is supposed to get. That is a wrong system. On the issue of common salary, so long as government will be the one to pay salary, then I don't see how government will now do a differential salary. To say, okay, in this university, this is how much a professor will earn, and in another university, this is how much a professor will earn. Like he has rightly pointed out, when you didn't reach the minimum, then you cannot think of the differential. Not only that, if you have a differential salary structure in Nigeria, I can assure you many other universities, even if they are best in terms of academic excellence, so long as their salary is lower than another university, by the Nigerian psyche, people will begin to say that, look, since this is not paying the best of your salary, then you're not getting, the best quality, and there will be a lot of issues to do with the employability of our graduate. So obviously, there will be no basis for, at the moment, there will be no basis for differential salary, there will be no basis for other things. Standard formula has been developed in terms of the excess workload. What obtains in my state university is what obtains in federal university, and the standard was developed and everybody is conversant with it. All we need to do is to try and ensure that, and there are checks. The fact that the computation is being done, universities still make a committee. For example, in my university, we still form a committee that will verify all the claim, and they will take it individual case by individual case to ensure that what you are claiming is actually what is due for you. So we need to have all hands on deck. The issue of university, governance and administration is something that needs to have the understanding of each and everybody. And I think the media also need to do a further role in terms of, educating and the public and the general public on this issue of autonomy. They need to understand clearly what this autonomy is all about, especially the political leaders. Especially the political leaders need to understand what this autonomy is all about. There are people that...
So, Professor Alhaji Musa, thank you very much for the many points that you have raised. We're pretty close to the end of today's interaction. I want to throw this back again, because I had mentioned this in the course of one of our programs, that the way public universities are at the moment, they have a configuration of a government parastatal. Basically, from what we do know about the operation of universities. And when, for instance, there are complaints about the percentage of federal government's recurrent expenditure, sometimes it escapes the knowledge of some persons that the salaries and emoluments and the earnings of federal public university staff, academic and non-academic, one part of that recurrent expenditure. So, Professor Manoma, how can we gradually, because this cannot be done by a stroke of the pen, to say suddenly you win public universities off the parastatal mentality, and then get them to stand on their own pay themselves at least considerably rather than relying on the federal purse for this purpose. In other words, if the governing council is truly your employer, how can we make the governing council be truly responsible for your financial issues, including your emoluments?
The starting point, Kingsley, is that the recruitment of membership of the governing council. That's the starting point, where you have people that are coming in as favors of government, that they are just there because they have participated in campaigns, they are there because they are politicians, not having the interest of the university as the major preoccupation. Then you have the kind of problem you are experiencing. Because ordinarily, members of governing council should be people that will be thinking of what they can bring to the university. If you have such people that their interest is what funds can I attract to the university, what investment can I bring to the university, not what I can get from the university. Majority of those that are in council today are those that they are seeing it as a way of getting something to eat. So even in terms of contract, they are looking for whether they should be the contractors. Even in terms of recruitment, they are thinking of bringing their own people. So if you have that kind of configuration, it is going to be difficult for the university to operate the kind of expectations you have, that they should be thinking of establishing endowments, establishing foundations, linking up with individuals that have the wherewithal to make impact financially on the universities. So so long as government does not sit down, carefully select people on the basis of not people that are hungry, sorry to use the word hungry, not people that are looking for what the university can do for them, but they have already established, they have foundations, they can endow chairs within universities on their individual self. They are accomplished businessmen. They are bureaucrats that everything that they require in terms of survival, they already have. Mm-hmm. So all that they are looking for is how they can impact on the society. Then if you have such people dominating the councils of the universities, then you will be in a position to say that you will now surrender the issue of how to raise money. They will on themselves think of how they can solve certain problems without recourse to government. But if you continue to have people that see appointment into governing council as a way of reward for their services to those in government, then you will not get it right. But so long as you have individuals that they are accomplished businessmen, that they have established themselves in society, then you will be in a position to say that you can surrender, they can find funds from different friends and relatives that they can bring money into the university, and that way they will reduce the burden from government. It is important we look at it from the point of, because certain developments in the society, if you say that we must pay school fees.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are really out of time. Sorry, we just have 3 minutes to the top of the hour. You know, it's becoming interesting. Really, you have hit the nail on the head. You know, some of these appointments are political settlements. You know, because the governing board, a member of the governing council of the university, that's an opportunity for you to make money. All right. Professor Mohammed Minoma, former Vice Chancellor of Nasarawa State University, thank you for being here this morning. Professor Shehu Olaji Musa, Vice Chancellor, Kano State University of Science and Technology, it's interesting sharing your thoughts and your views from the State University perspective. We appreciate that.
Yeah, Kieran, let me also add, because I mentioned that when we were introducing him, Professor Alhaji Musa, I said I was very fond of that number that was played by Mama Shatta Kassina. It also was in the 70s. That brand of music was known as Kalangu music. Sam Jordan used to play it very much on FRCN. So, Professor Alhaji Musa, thank you for being our guest this morning.
Yes, and we do have the opportunity of also knowing whether you can sing the song. All right.
Alhaji Musa.
All right. Professor Munirat Yusuf Habib, we thank you indeed for being our guest this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you. We appreciate that. Okay, well, let's take a bit of sports.